1,000 career passing yards, a milestone 9 other quarterbacks have reached. The Rams also reached a deal with offensive tackle Alaric Jackson. It's a 3-year contract worth $57 million. The 49ers have traded Deebo Samuel to Washington. In exchange, they get a 5th-round pick. Washington takes on the remainder of Samuel's contract. The standout receiver becomes another weapon for quarterback Jaden Daniels. The Chiefs will reportedly use the franchise tag on Pro Bowl guard Trey Smith. Meanwhile, teams were informed last week that the salary cap for this coming season is $279.2 million per club. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo and save with Progressive.
That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
There are lots of reasons to get excited for spring. Warmer weather, get-togethers, and now new spring arrivals from your favorite brands at Macy's. Even more exciting, refresh your beauty routine at our Buy More, Save More event. Pick up new skincare, makeup, and fragrances from Estee Lauder, Valentino, MAC, and more. And save $30 with every $150 you spend. The more you spend, the more you save. Don't wait. Beauty deals this good won't last long. Hurry into Macy's today. Savings off regular price beauty and fragrance. Exclusions apply.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, hon.
My brother was saying he got life insurance from Ethos. With Ethos, it only took 10 minutes and he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit getethos.com. That's getethos.com.
Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly.
How many SportsGrid listeners does it take to change a light bulb?
It takes 2.
One to change the light bulb, and one to see if our mobile app can provide the same amount of light. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
A new week starts right here, right now, live on Football Full Circle all across the SportsGrid Radio Network. That includes SportsGrid.com and, of course, Sirius XM Channel 159. He is the mastermind of the pigskin. That is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. Combine week in Indianapolis has come to a close. Our reactions to what we saw in Indy with the best prospects taking that leap to the next level around the National Football League. And, of course, Joe, all of the news that comes from Combine Week in Indy as well. It was a jam-packed weekend full of maneuvers, headlines, and even trades around the National Football League. We'll break it all down here up until 1 p.m. Eastern time on FFC.
Yeah, and we talked pre-Combine about some of the big quarterbacks that potentially could help their draft status. 2 of those quarterbacks, Jackson Dart and Quinn Ewers, performed very well. On the flip side, you saw Will Howard struggle in terms of potentially the worst performance that we've seen at the Combine. And this is where the storylines start to develop and players start to really help their status, maybe second, third, and fourth round type of players. We saw Isaiah Bond, right? He told everybody he was going to light up the 40-yard dash, 4-1, 4-2. He runs a 4-4, and now he's just an afterthought in terms of, being a wide receiver drafted in this league. So at the end of the day, this is what we look forward to, and we'll see how, the situation plays out with some of the veteran quarterbacks on the market, such as Aaron Rodgers. Will he go to the New York Giants, or will he be on another team in 2025?
So on Friday, before we hit the weekend, of course, we had boots on the ground right outside the Rams practice facility in Los Angeles. My father, Rick Stevens, who of course works right across the street and can see all the inner workings of that organization and who is entering and exiting that facility. We got no reports until ESPN's Adam Schefter released the report that Matthew Stafford and the Rams had agreed to a new deal. What exactly the specifics of that deal is, length of it, how much money, we don't know just yet. But, Joe, we did learn on Friday that Matthew Stafford is not leaving. He is staying in L.A.
Yeah, and again, everything was there for Matt Stafford to be successful, right? The team won the NFC West. You have a host of young talent offensively and defensively, and on paper right now, not knowing what the San Francisco 49ers are going to be this year, you would have to say the LA Rams are definitely the front runner to win the division. And with Matt Stafford now happy from a monetary standpoint I think the LA Rams can be definitely a potential dark horse for an NFC championship. Why he wanted to move or get away from that might have been just for leverage, but it seemed like there was something else that we were missing in terms of behind the scenes. But hopefully it'll all pan out for Sean McVay and the crew this coming season.
Yeah, Lisi, that's still a very compelling thing, right? What exactly was that schism, at least, that allowed speculation and rumor to feel like it had some truth and honesty behind it? Was it the personal relationship? Was it strictly monetary? Has that been figured out? We shall see. We did know the report that Matthew Stafford was seeking $50 million per year in his contract. We don't know exactly what the financial figures are for this new deal. I will say, exactly 1 week from today, free agency really does begin around the NFL. The 48-hour negotiating window that opens up with the league year officially beginning on Wednesday, 9 days from now, when those reported contracts can officially be signed. The Rams have said it will be agreed to then. So, Lacey, it's not just Matthew Stafford staying in Los Angeles that, as we shared basically with a daily update all last week, seemed to make the most sense for every party. The individual in Stafford, the team in Los Angeles, and even the others maybe having to give up a lot to acquire Matthew Stafford. But those other two teams, Joe, that were the front runners, if they could lure Matthew Stafford away, the Giants and the Raiders now have to get back to the drawing board on how they approach their offseason at the quarterback spot, which led to some interesting reports as well on Friday afternoon. Adam Schefter saying the Giants might be interested in the veteran quarterback market, and namely Aaron Rodgers. That was the conversation all week long in Indianapolis. Joe, would it make sense for the Giants to sign Aaron Rodgers this offseason?
Well, we went through this, last week, Ben. It makes sense if you're Brian Dable because his back is against the wall. He's on the hot seat, and he has to be competitive this year in order for the Giants to keep his job, right? So again, if it's Brian Dable making the call, I think it's absolutely a possibility to get Aaron Rodgers. You get a quarterback that's already got 1 year under his belt in New York. Maybe he worked out the kinks towards the end of the regular season. He's a veteran. He understands the landscape, the stadium, because MetLife is windy stadium for kickers. It's very difficult for quarterbacks now knowing what the elements are in terms of that stadium from the quarterback perspective. You're already ahead of the curve as opposed to getting a rookie or a veteran in there that doesn't understand how to play in terms of New York and handle the media. So I think from that aspect, it's good. Would I make that decision if I'm the New York Giants as an organization? No, because again, they're in a major rebuild. They have to go and challenge the likes of the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders that have young quarterback talent and young depth at every position, basically, and then a veteran team in terms of the Cowboys that are still better on paper than the Giants. They need to make moves to make them better 2 or 3 years down the road, not just this season.
Yeah, and Joe, really, when it comes down to it, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Could Aaron Rodgers be in play? Fine. Does Aaron Rodgers elevate the New York Giants? More than likely, no. 4.5, 5.5, probably the win total right now for the G-Men with the acquisition of Rodgers at this stage of his career, entering year number 21. Up that win total by a game or two? Probably not. Would I think the Giants would be a 6 or 7 win team with Aaron Rodgers in New York? No, and I certainly would not bet that to be the case. So is it worth the notoriety? Is it worth the attention and the focus that adding Aaron Rodgers will mean for your team? Because, Joe, that's still a part of it, right? Aaron Rodgers is not playing at the MVP level that we have seen for a good majority of his NFL career. But it's still Aaron Rodgers and all the attention that comes with it. If the Giants are fully set on a rebuilding type season, which is what the odds can expect out of the G-Men this year, Aaron Rodgers provides them no benefit. If you want to rebuild, get a different veteran quarterback who can play at league minimum and be bad so that you can bolster your draft position for 2026. But, Joe, I think what the compelling part of all of this is, I don't think Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are sold on this idea of a rebuild, because if they have another 3 or 4 win season, they're probably out of a job entering 2026.
Yeah, and if you don't get the top two quarterbacks in the class, then it makes it very difficult to say, okay, like Caleb with Matt Eberflus, there was the thought process that, as long as they were competitive with Caleb, Eberflus could potentially keep his job, right? They start 4-2 and then fall off a cliff, and he was gone mid-season. The Giants don't want that, right? So for the GM and the coach, to your point, they can't take time to cultivate a young quarterback and wait 2-3 seasons. They need to win now, and they are staring right now potentially 0-6 in the division with just a rookie quarterback. So Aaron Rodgers helps that. Maybe 3-3. Maybe that changes the narrative, and maybe that changes them from being a 4 or 5 win football team to maybe an 8 or 9 win football team this year. Yeah. And then they could sell it for 2026. But for the long term, that's not a viable option, Ben.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, Joe, that Aaron Rodgers really helps them out at all, based on what we have seen during his tenure with the New York Jets. Of course, injury-marred first season, but really didn't do anything to make the Jets more of a winning football team in 2024. We'll continue to talk the quarterback offseason moves up next.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid, and we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin. He just gives that 5. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Thousands of Microsoft 365 customers reported having issues with services like Outlook on Saturday. In a series of posts on X, the company said it was investigating the issue, which affected various Microsoft 365 services. Outage reports for Microsoft 365 and Outlook in particular peaked around 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time before dropping off, and some users began saying their access was restored. The Pentagon is sending about 3,000 more active duty troops to the U.S.-Mexico border. President Donald Trump's Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered elements of a Stryker Brigade combat team and a General Support Aviation Battalion for the mission. According to the Pentagon, the forces will arrive along the 2,000-mile border in the coming weeks. Already about 9,200 U.S. troops in total are at the southern border, including 4,200 deployed under federal orders and about 5,000 National Guard troops under the control of governors. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
With Progressive, renters can save on protection for the things that make your place yours, even things that don't make sense to everyone.
People always wonder why I don't get rid of my guitar since I never play. But it's like, what if I actually end up taking lessons? Sure, I've had it for 8 years, but if I get rid of it, then what will my New Year's resolution be next January?
Exactly. So bundle your renters and auto and save with Progressive and protect the things that make sense to you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates and other insurers not available in all states or situations. Covered subject to policy terms and conditions.
There's something you should know and always remember. SportsGrid does not increase luck. We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck, go find a horseshoe. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. So should the Giants pursue Aaron Rodgers this offseason? And will they? Joe, I think it's an interesting season ahead for New York because you have Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll about to enter their 4th year at the helm of this Giants organization. First year was fantastic. A playoff run, a playoff win on the road against the Vikings. And then the last 2 years have not been nearly as kind. It's been a disaster at the quarterback spot with the Daniel Jones departure. And, of course, you let Saquon Barkley walk this past offseason to have a record-setting year for your divisional foe as he helps them win a Super Bowl. So, Joe, it felt that their jobs very much were in question and their futures uncertain this offseason. They're back. The Mara family keeping them in place. But I would say sitting ducks, lame ducks, however you want to categorize it, on very warm seats. They don't have a rebuild year in them, it would seem. If the Giants go 4-13 or 4-13 or 3-14 once again, does Aaron Rodgers help them change that? I'm not so sure. But of course, a quarterback question needs to be answered by the Giants.
Yeah, so everything you said is spot on. And the only thing that it changes is that the staff, meaning, Dable and the offensive staff, they don't have to coach up Aaron Rodgers, right? If you get him. It's like, okay, we know what we're getting, good, bad, or ugly, and we could work on potentially in the draft, solidifying some star talent if they were able to get Travis Hunter and pair him with Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, all of a sudden, maybe that offense is more productive with Tyrone Tracy coming back, dealing with injury. So at the end of the day, it is a catch-22. And we talk about it all the time. The worst thing to happen to the New York Giants was that they didn't do this from year number one. Strip it down and then build it back up to year 2 and year 3, where in year 4, you're potentially challenging for an NFC East title, as opposed to just getting back over 500 and hoping that you can make a wild card appearance. This team doesn't have that type of talent. Does Aaron Rodgers help them in any capacity? Short term, it helps that, okay, it's a veteran quarterback. We know what we have and we can worry about the other pieces. But from a locker room, a continuity standpoint, and just being, a winner without the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers hasn't proved that yet with the Jets. So why would you take him on if he ran that program and organization into the ground? Why would you want to take him on? That's the negative.
And I don't think there would be the expectation that Aaron Rodgers entered the Jets organization with these Giants, at least certainly not on the play we have seen the last 2 years, which would be fair to not set those expectations. But there still would be the attention and the focus of having Aaron Rodgers as a part of this Giants franchise. Joe, elsewhere, the Las Vegas Raiders were also reportedly in the running for Matthew Stafford. They miss out on that. ESPN's Adam Schefter saying on Friday the Raiders are going to approach a couple of different options. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, not under contract currently with the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe even Sam Darnold. The Raiders have the 6th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. What do you think the Raiders elect to do with the QB spot this offseason?
I think they potentially draft a quarterback. I do. I think, if Jackson Dart is there or something else where they move up maybe potentially to get a shot at Shador or Cam Ward, that's always a possibility as well. Knowing that Stafford is off the market, knowing potentially Aaron Rodgers has more interest in New York than Las Vegas, I don't think they go to a quarterback like Sam Darnold to turn around the organization. And again, it's a small fix. This team and offense is in major need of multiple parts and areas of concern. After they got rid of Josh Jacobs, they don't have an elite running back. They have Brock Bowers. Jacoby Myers is good. He's not elite. So they need to really solidify more pieces offensively. And I think they do it through the draft. Year 1 with a new head coach and Pete Carroll, I think this is the year to do it. Just because Pete Carroll's there doesn't mean you need a win-now quarterback or a veteran, even though he might have signed up for that. Best thing for the organization is get young talent that could be, groomed for the next 2 or 3 seasons. But again, we'll see. We'll see what the mindset is of the Raiders in terms of the draft.
And you don't know, Joe, necessarily if they are going to have the opportunity to select a quarterback at 6th overall. And much like the Giants conversation, right? Whatever veteran you add, I'm not sure it makes much of a difference. We have 2 teams now at the end of Combine Week in Indianapolis at a 200-1 number to win Super Bowl 60 entering 2025's NFL season. The longest 2 prices on the board. It's the Giants and the Raiders. Joe, we are likely talking win totals for these teams at 5.5, and if not 5.5, fewer than that. Pete Carroll might be there to provide a stable base for a Raiders organization in desperate need of it. I'm not entirely sure what the answer is. I don't know what the personal relationship is anymore between Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, but of course they had great success together in Seattle. If it is about providing stability, if that's why the Raiders made this move, then to me, Russ would make a lot of sense in the silver and black. I'm not sure that's what's going to happen. I just think that could make some sense if that relationship is still there. To have Pete Carroll, new GM John Spytek, new minority owner who seems very involved in Tom Brady, a reliable name like Russell Wilson. Of course, we know the ceiling is not quite the guy that would cook back with the Seahawks, but at least to provide that stable floor, maybe Russell Wilson is the answer.
Yeah, I mean, again, a veteran, stable the waters. Maybe you're a 5 or a 6 win football team. You could get some young talent in there. If you could draft a quarterback, maybe 6th overall or maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round and hope that it hits. That's always a possibility as well. But they have so many holes to fill, right? Offensively, that we're looking at. I'd be shocked if this team gets to 8 or 9 wins in year one.
Of course. And that won't be the expectation. Again, the Giants and the Raiders, we're talking win totals of 5.5. I would say at its peak entering the 2025 NFL season. But plenty more news around the National Football League, including a big deal in Washington. That's next on FFC.
There's smart and there's not smart. Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Keep it here and win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
In 1967, the White Sox were given permission to use a semi-designated hitter in training camp. 6 years later, the DH was implemented in the American League in 1973. Ron Blomberg of the Yankees became the first official DH in MLB history.
I had no idea it was going to affect baseball this much. I thought it was going to last a year at the most.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
The University of Copenhagen's new AI machine learning model can understand the emotional state of animals just by listening to them. With 89.4% accuracy, it acoustically distinguishes positive and negative emotions from 7 different species, including cows,
it's a beautiful day,
pigs,
stop stealing my slop,
and even wild boars.
Have you ever had one of those days?
This breakthrough universal animal emotion translator, a game changer for barnyard quality of life.
You're standing on my foot.
Follow me at G Capalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Carver and Lisi.
So go ahead and say what it is. Instead of just
whoa.
it in there. What is it?
I won't be treated like that on half of my show with sometimes Lisi.
What is it?
So Mary Kate Cornett from Oxford, Mississippi, apparently cheated on her boyfriend with the boyfriend's dad, and it's making the rounds. I'm just saying, that's what we got right now.
It's Carver and Lisi with Mike Carver and Joe Lisi. Weekdays 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go, there you are. Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you. So now you can get the winning edge anywhere. Even while the wife's talking to you. If you've got an earbud. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. It is FFC on Saturday afternoon. A deal that was expected was officially done. Deebo Samuel was going to be moved at some point this offseason by the San Francisco 49ers. This early in the offseason, that was the interesting part. The 49ers have traded Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders in exchange for a 5th-round pick. Only a 5th rounder back to the Niners, Joe. And Deebo Samuel, maybe not what he was in 2021, his only Pro Bowl year when he was a first-team All-Pro performer for San Francisco. But Washington does add some depth to its wide receiver room. And Deebo Samuel, a talented offensive player under the guidance of Cliff Kingsbury, might be able to re-unlock something under Jaden Daniels. Did you like this move for both sides?
Yeah, I mean, do I believe Debo will be the same player that he was, when he made the Pro Bowl? No. But again, in this offense where we saw wide receivers step up, Noah Brown, Zacchaeus, and some of the others, Debo Samuel is an upgrade to potentially, be there with Terry McLaurin as a number one, number two, right? If Zach Ertz could channel what he had towards the end of the last season, now you have the big three. You have a competent 1-2 punch. You have the tight end, and you have a quarterback that could just run it and throw it at any given moment and take a game over. That's what you want. But if they could get some of the rushing attack out of Debo, all right, the fly sweeps and the rushing 4 or 5 touches a game where he could maybe break the game open on the ground, that's an added benefit to this offense. And again, expecting he's not the pure number one, I think in this offense, it's a perfect fit. If he were to go to like the Steelers or, more New England, I don't think it's the same type of results. But with Jaden Daniels, with the wide open attack that they have and the other weapons that they have, I think it's a nice cherry on top as long as he could stay healthy.
Yeah, I would agree, Joe. I don't think he has to be the number one guy. He didn't exactly step up where he kind of needed to be the number one guy this year. San Francisco dealing with so many injuries, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk out for the year, Vicky Pearsall, even Jawan Jennings. You thought Debo Samuel, who played and started in 15 games this year for the 49ers, could have been that. He certainly wasn't. He is a guy, Joe, that also, of course, can be utilized in the ground game. We'll see at this stage of his career if that still is the case. He has played 6 years in the NFL. He has spent them all in San Francisco. At the end of that all-pro season in 2021, he signed an extension with San Francisco entering the 2022 campaign, still under contract entering this year, now with the Commanders, who owe him a little bit more than $21 million. Not exactly the heftiest price tag for Debo Samuel at this moment. But, Joe, that will be the question, right? What does he have to do with the Commanders, and what do they really need him to do? If he's just an additional piece with Cliff Kingsbury, with Jaden Daniels, behind Terry McLaurin, if they can re-sign De'Ami Brown, all of those things, Joe, it's a good move that I think only benefits the Commanders. We shall see exactly what the production level is for Debo Samuel, but really at this moment really seems to be a benefit for Washington.
Yeah, and he's a winner, right? I mean, he's been to Super Bowls. He understands what it takes, from a locker room perspective. That's important as well with a young team that made it to the NFC Championship. You want to surround yourselves with veterans that have done it before and could challenge again for potentially another NFC Championship appearance. And when you have a young quarterback in Jaden Daniels, to have a potential security blanket in terms of Debo Samuel as that veteran, that's important. And again, we'll see what Cliff Kingsbury could dial up, but you have a multi-dimensional player that you could utilize in multiple sets, and I think that's what's attractive to this offense.
Yeah, it's got to be, right? It really has to be for the Commanders at this time. So, Joe, when we look at Washington's price to win a Super Bowl this upcoming season, 20-1. Now the number. We saw it at 18-1 when it opened, moved back to 24-1. I don't believe Debo Samuel is the only reason that thing shortened by $4, but it does show you the Commanders are going to be a team we expect to contend in the sophomore campaign for Jaden Daniels. A lot to like, a lot of congruency coming back for Washington. And of course, Joe, you would expect Jaden Daniels to build on the success he had in his rookie season.
Oh, absolutely, right? You get your feet wet, you lead the team to an NFC Championship appearance. Now year number 2, sky's the limit, and you got the ring rust out. You got the first year butterflies out of your system, and all the talent is there to challenge for a potential NFC Championship this year.
Yep, and we'll see if they do just that. Plenty more news on Football Full Circle coming your way up next.
The winning edge. You've got it. But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us. But we're working on that. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. Men's top 25 hoops on Sunday. Number 8, Michigan State beat number 11, Wisconsin, 71-62. Illinois upset number 15, Michigan, 93-73. Michigan State's 15-3 in the Big Ten. Michigan 14-4. The Spartans and Wolverines will battle next Sunday in a matchup that could determine the Big Ten championship. Elsewhere Sunday, number 18, Memphis beat UAB 88-81. The Tigers are 14-2 in the American. Women's top 25 Sunday, number 1, Texas beat Florida 72-46. Number 6, South Carolina beat number 15, Kentucky 78-66. Both South Carolina and Texas are 15-1 in the SEC. The Longhorns and Gamecocks split their season series, but South Carolina won a coin flip and will be the number 1 seed for this week's SEC tournament in Greenville. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive.
That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
With Fidelity Wealth Management, a dedicated advisor gets to know you and your goals to build a comprehensive plan to help grow and protect your wealth. Backed by a team of specialists, they'll analyze all your accounts, even the ones they don't manage, to keep an eye on taxes and provide proactive portfolio insights that can help you unlock your wealth's full potential. Learn more at fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
Something amazing is happening in workplaces everywhere. Devices are learning how people work and adapting to help them get more done. That's because CDW is modernizing experiences with Dell's intelligent portfolio of devices. Thanks to built-in security and AI capabilities, your teams can work smarter wherever they may be. Dell and CDW. Make amazing happen. Learn more at cdw.com/Dell Client.
You're listening to SportsGrid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on FFC, it is Football Full Circle. Joe, we expect this to be a busy offseason for the Cincinnati Bengals, and it continues. They have released one of their guards, one of their offensive linemen, Alex Kappa, saving Cincy about $8 million in cap space, which of course is going to be critical for this Bengals team looking to make sure they can keep everybody in-house. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Trey Hendrickson. Alex Kappa in his 3 years with Cincinnati after his first 4 in Tampa of his NFL career. Played and started in every single game. 50 games for the Bengals in the last 3 years. Of course, in 2022, they only played 16 games officially. So Alex Kappa was a staple of this offensive line, Joe. They let him go after 3 years, saving the Bengals organization about $8 million worth of cap wiggle room.
Yeah, again, these are smart moves I believe that, they need to do in order to keep, to your point, the big three, right? You need Jamar Chase, you need T. Higgins, you have your quarterback in Joe Burrow, and what they do and potentially sign Trey Hendrickson. But, at the end of the day, this should have been done sooner rather than later. They're scrambling now with these moves, but they have to be done, Ben, right? If this team's going to be competitive next season, you need those players happy. You need those players in camp. You need those players to be happy with the money that they're getting so that potentially they can make a run. The slow starts and the contract talks, you can't have this year after year after year. Right. There has to be some positive momentum heading into week number 1 for a change.
Yeah, absolutely so. So we will see, Joe, if that is going to be the case. One of the reasons this is also going to be important is because the release happens today, saving the Bengals about $8 million worth of cap space. And tomorrow is an interesting headline around the NFL, an interesting deadline also. Around 4 p.m. Eastern time is the franchise or transition tag deadline, where teams have until that moment to place the tag tender on a guy on their roster. Of course, keeping them in-house, avoiding them becoming a free agent as we get ready for free agency to begin in just about a week. And Joe, we would think as of this moment, unless a really big headline comes out in the next 12, 24 hours or so, that T. Higgins is going to be placed under the franchise tag once again by Cincinnati. It has not officially happened as of yet. But, Joe, that's what they told us early in the offseason, that they might tag T. Higgins so he couldn't become a free agent, so the Bengals could keep him in-house, not negotiate against 31 other NFL teams, but still work to reach that long-term extension. We'll see if that long-term extension eventually comes. But, Joe, we're expecting, you would think, in the next few hours or so to learn some sort of franchise tag plan for T. Higgins by the Bengals.
Yeah, so if they put a franchise tag on him, okay, that's okay if they plan on signing him within a week or two, right? Meaning like just, franchise him. If they franchise him and this goes past a month, you're going to have a disgruntled player that's going to be half checked out, and then, you might lose that whole situation. So, again, he wants his money. He's made it known. He's played last year under the tag, and he performed great. And now you have to reward that. If you want him a part of your team, that's the big thing. If the vision is we need Jamar Chase and T. Higgins there, happy and content, franchise them, sign them, and move on.
Absolutely, Joe. This cannot be prolonged because it could be, right? If you place the franchise tag on a player on your roster, you have until the middle of July 15th, to either agree to a long-term extension right before training camp, or that player plays under the tag or a reworked short-term deal that can only be at most 1 year. And if the Bengals were allowing T. Higgins to play under a second year of the tag, if that was something he even wanted to do, he would automatically become a free agent next year. He would not be eligible to be placed under yet another franchise tag. So, Joe, that is the key. If you tag him, great, but you better tag him still with the point of emphasis being, by the time we get to the NFL draft, at latest, you've agreed to a new deal. Joe, we saw that a lot, right? Lamar Jackson 2 years ago, on the day of the opening round of the NFL draft, that long-term extension. Things do get quiet when there's not some big event around the NFL. Combine week, a couple of weeks off, we'll have pro days, then we'll have the NFL draft at the end of April. And 9 guys were placed under the franchise tag or transition tag last offseason. Of those 9, Higgins was the only one, Joe, not to agree to a new long-term extension with that team that placed the tag on him, or that player was dealt, Brian Burns, L'Jarius Sneed, to another team and agreed to a new deal with his new organization. So T. Higgins knows that if the Bengals tag me, brother, this deal better be done right away. If not, I'm not showing up for anything. And frankly, who could blame T. Higgins?
Right, and that's the point, right? You just said it. The continuity, the locker room perspective. The guy can be checked out. You're not going to get 110% each week, right? It's different than Lamar Jackson. And just because Lamar's situation worked out doesn't mean that this situation is going to work out. Players are different, right? Different types of feelings. If they feel like they've been disrespected, the longer that it plays out, you don't know. Again, you don't know what to expect from these guys, even though they're getting the money. Yeah, I got to show up to work. Yeah, am I motivated now? They did me rotten. They waited until July, as opposed to, feelings start to circulate and all of a sudden become prevalent. And then a player might all of a sudden check out where he's not giving you 110% physically and mentally. And is that really good? Or is that what you want from an organizational standpoint, looking to challenge the best team in the AFC to get to a championship? I don't think so.
No, you want those good tides. The only person officially placed under a franchise tag as of this moment is Trey Smith, the offensive right guard for Kansas City. The Chiefs have made it very clear. We are hoping to work to a long-term extension with Trey Smith, and we would expect them to do so. It's oftentimes, Joe, when you hear Cincy's front office, led by Duke Tobin, say a plan for an offseason in terms of paying a player, you got to take it with a grain of salt because we have heard that so many times. We did get a report over the weekend out of Dallas that Osa Odighizuwa, who's one of their defensive linemen, will be placed under the franchise tag if a long-term extension in the next 24 hours or so is not reached. Again, Dallas not doing themselves any benefits by waiting until deadlines come up to agree to long-term deals. Because, Joe, if you're paying a Digizua, you're paying a lot of money up front in terms of that salary under the franchise tag. You are not working on a franchise-friendly deal based on cap space. And you now have already paid Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, and you know you have to pay Micah Parsons, probably making him the highest paid defensive player in NFL history this offseason. You need that financial flexibility. The franchise tag does not really allow you.
No, and I think Dallas honestly is going about things all the wrong way. They showed that to you last year with the deal in terms of the 25th hour with Dak Prescott, making him the highest quarterback, and they're showing that to you this year right now, the situation with Parsons and all the other veterans. So again, Dallas to me is in complete disarray internally. Again, I know they have Schottenheimer there. People are expecting him to be an upgrade from what they had, but this team from just a locker room perspective, an owner perspective, they're a mess, man. And I don't expect them to bounce back in any particular way, even if they sign Micah Parsons to a long-term contract or a long-term deal. I don't think it'll matter, to be honest with you.
You would have the pieces, right? Theoretically, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons on the other side to at least try to see some success. When Dak has been fully healthy the last 5 years, the Cowboys have won exactly 12 games and have won the NFC East 2 of those 3 seasons. But it doesn't overly feel optimistic at this moment for the Cowboys. We'll continue that conversation up next here on Football Full Circle.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie. Just saying. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Thousands of Microsoft 365 customers reported having issues with services like Outlook on Saturday. In a series of posts on X, the company said it was investigating the issue, which affected various Microsoft 365 services. Outage reports for Microsoft 365 and Outlook in particular peaked around 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time before dropping off, and some users began saying their access was restored. The Pentagon is sending about 3,000 more active duty troops to the U.S.-Mexico border. President Donald Trump's Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered elements of a Stryker Brigade combat team and a General Support Aviation Battalion for the mission. According to the Pentagon, the forces will arrive along the 2,000-mile border in the coming weeks. Already about 9,200 U.S. troops in total are at the southern border, including 4,200 deployed under federal orders and about 5,000 National Guard troops under the control of governors. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
At Skechers, we put the S in comfort.
Wait. Skechers put the S in comfort?
Yes, comfort you have to feel to believe. Skechers, we put the S in comfort.
Let me try. Okay, I'm just stepping in and... Oh, wow. Skechers put the S in comfort.
Duh, we told you.
Find Skechers slip-ins at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
What was that?
That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to handle the busy holiday season, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business comm at ooma.com/radio.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important. That's where we come in. SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning more often. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. It is FFC. He is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. Joe, one more bit of news to recap for you around this NFL weekend. The Jets are starting afresh under new guidance. Head coach Aaron Glenn, new GM Darren Muji. They are making all the moves necessary to clean house and start with that clean slate in New York, because Devontae Adams is not coming back as a member of this Jets franchise entering 2025. Of course, was acquired from the Las Vegas Raiders midway through the 2024 campaign. Played about 11 games with the New York Jets, Joe, but of course it did not work out in the reunion of Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams for overall team success, despite the fact that Adams still had over 1,000 receiving yards this past season. He is going to be a highly sought after, we would think, wide receiver this offseason. We'll see what Devontae still has left in the tank.
Yeah, again, he's like Debo, right? He had glimpses last year where he lived up to expectations and looked like that guy. Certainly the game against Jacksonville, where he broke the game open in the second half. But the New York Jets made the right decision, right? They needed to remove themselves from Aaron Rodgers and anything attached to Aaron Rodgers, and that was Devontae Adams, especially if you wanted to keep the young talent like Garrett Wilson happy. You have a first-year head coach. You're in a minor rebuild, right? This is an opportunity to have a fresh start, move away from all the negativity, and they did that with Devontae Adams. Where does Adams go? The fact that Devontae Adams at one point entertained he would go back to Las Vegas, if I'm that organization, I would never take him back. There was no reason for him to leave in the first place. He left. If you're the Raiders, you take him back, you're showing your true colors. And again, you're just going to be a losing organization the rest of the way. So where can Devontae Adams go? We'll see. Does he go to a team like Buffalo? Does he go to a potential contender like the Chargers that need a wide receiver help? We'll see. I think those are pretty good fits right now.
Yeah, Joe, after 2022, right, his third consecutive AP All-Pro first-team season, he was thought of, Devontae Adams, as one of the best receivers in the National Football League. That was his first year in Las Vegas, by the way, 2022, continuing what we had seen the tail end of his career in Green Bay. 5 consecutive seasons as a Pro Bowler when Aaron Rodgers won back-to-back MVP awards in 2020 and 21. Devontae Adams was a first-team All-Pro wide receiver. Even in 2023, Joe, not a Pro Bowl nod or an All-Pro team, but still more than 1,100 receiving yards, 8 receiving touchdowns. Even this year, just 3 games with the Raiders, 11 in New York, still 8 receiving touchdowns, still more than 1,000 receiving yards. Now he's up there. He's 32 years old, will be 33 near the end of December. But Joe, Devontae Adams can still get it done. And I do believe in what could be a free agent wide receiver market without T. Higgins, Devontae Adams would be one of those top targets. You mentioned Los Angeles. That would seem to make a lot of sense with the Chargers. New England has the most cap space this offseason and is in desperate need of wide receivers. Devontae being on the move could be an interesting thing to see around the NFL. And Joe, to your point about the Raiders, I don't think they'd take him back because it's a fresh start in Sin City as well. And the only reason Devontae Adams ever went to Las Vegas was to reunite with his college teammate and buddy in Derek Carr, who the Raiders then shipped off before the end of the 2022 season, their first together in Vegas.
Yeah, and again, he's played in cold weather. So to your point, Buffalo is another team that maybe makes some sense. Cleveland, if they're looking for wide receiver help, depending upon what they do, they have Jerry Jeudy there, who's the quarterback. So again, you're right in terms of I still think he's got something left in the tank with a competent quarterback, but he's not expected. If you're signing Devontae Adams, you're not signing him to be that pure number one. You're signing him the way the Commanders signed Deebo Samuel, where you have a number one or you have a deep outside threat and you want a complementary piece, that veteran leadership. That's where Devontae Adams becomes an asset. Expecting him to be the guy, that's a different story and a different narrative that, I hope some teams don't look at him and think he's on the same level as Jamar Chase or even Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. I don't think he is. I wonder what that deal would be for Devontae Adams moving forward in terms of his NFL future starting in 2025. Joe, let's talk some NFL prospects. This weekend at the Combine in Indianapolis, not a ton of overly notable news, right? Some players performed well. Arbon Membu, the offensive lineman out of Missouri, looked like an athletic freak. Nick Amonwori, he was fantastic for South Carolina during his playing days and showed out well at the Combine as well. Eman Wari for South Carolina, an athletic freak, as he put on display. We saw Will Campbell perform very well, expected to be one of the first offensive linemen off the board. In terms of quarterbacks, you mentioned Will Howard did not throw very well on air this weekend in Indianapolis. Tyler Shuck, the veteran, after 7 seasons of college football, he looked pretty good. There's some conversation that even at 26 years old, by the time he starts his rookie year, he might be the third quarterback off the board following Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Neither of those top 2 quarterback prospects throwing over the weekend, but going through the interview processes in meeting with the media, of course.
Yeah, Tyler Shook, I watch NFL Network too, and people said, oh, Tyler Shook, scouts are in love and enamored with his, just skills. There's a quarterback that transferred multiple times, went from Oregon to Texas Tech to Louisville. He's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a first-round talent in any capacity. So keep an eye out. I know he put up numbers, but at the end of the day, you got to be very careful. The age isn't a concern for me. I don't know why. If you're going to get 10 years out of a guy, what's wrong with that? I mean, we're not talking about the guy being 36. He's 26. That could be a benefit in the coming into an NFL organization, being mature. So we'll see how this plays out. But scouts are crazy when they break down these quarterbacks, Ben.
It is interesting, and I don't think Tyler Shuck would be a first-round pick, but maybe that third quarterback if we don't see another one in the opening round following Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. But, Joe, to your point, we've seen those veteran quarterbacks, a.k.a. Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., get drafted high, and Bo Nix at least performed very well in his rookie season in the full part of that campaign. More from Indian Combine Weekend coming to a close next.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Moneyline at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Imagine combining the exciting investment opportunity of cryptocurrencies with the power of artificial intelligence to maximize your IRA, 401k, or other investment funds. Listen, if you're looking for ways to accelerate your retirement growth, Block Trust IRA has market-leading strategies and solutions for all levels of investors, from $1,000 to millions. And they partner with Bitcoin Magazine's #1 crypto trading fund in the world to maximize your returns. Plus, their team of IRA specialists is here to help you roll over your IRA or qualified retirement account to the new world of cryptocurrency investments. So make this free call right now to set up your account and learn more.
800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. That's 800-434-5313.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
These are moves we can expect to be made around this time before the league year officially begins 1 week from Wednesday in that negotiating window for free agency to clear up all the cap space necessary starts exactly 1 week from today. Joe, after being a part of a Super Bowl winning team and a Pro Bowler 3 consecutive years prior to this past season, the Philadelphia Eagles are planning on releasing the man known as Big Play Slay, Darius Slay. 34 years old, just turned 34 on New Year's Day, just completed his 12th year in the NFL, the previous 5 in Philadelphia after the first 7 in Detroit. The Eagles are waiving Darius Slay to probably free up some cap room, and at 34 years old, Darius Slay has said he still wants to play at least one more year in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, again, a smart move. You talk about, they have 2 young talents in the back with Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. Slay at the back 9 in terms of his career that you always want to get younger as it relates to the secondary perspective. You allow Darius Slay to get the Super Bowl ring, and now you release him and maybe he could sign on with another team to make another run. At the end of the day, it's the right move for the organization. They did right. They won the Super Bowl. And now it's a business. Darius Slay, at times, not this past year, but during his career, has been very inconsistent. So it's a good move. You got the most out of him last year. You won a Super Bowl, and now you move on.
He has been pretty great, really, since 2017. He has been a Pro Bowler in 6 of 8 years, an AP first-team All-Pro performer back in the 2017 campaign in the Motor City with the Lions as well. Had been a Pro Bowler 3 consecutive years prior to this past season in Philadelphia. Still played in 14 games, starting all of those, and did have 13 passes defended. So still playing at a high level. It is not shocking, Joe, for an Eagles team that has a lot of financial burden on it, focusing on its defensive players, and of course, a lot of them young and still under the rookie contracts, to try to free up some wiggle room, although it does seem like the sign of the times, if you will, that Darius Slay, after winning a Super Bowl, is no longer going to be an Eagle. But as you said, it's a business. And I don't think Slay is probably shocked by this news either. 5 years in Philadelphia, 2 Super Bowl appearances, and of course was a huge anchor of that defensive secondary. But they make their move because they have Quinyon Mitchell, they have Cooper DeJean, they have a lot of talent back there for Philadelphia. I still think Darius Slay is going to make an impact somewhere, Joe, entering 2025, but it's really a cap-saving move, and that's kind of what happens at this stage of the offseason to fill out as much cap space as possible.
Yeah, again, you're the defending Super Bowl champs. You want to make moves to solidify another run. They have a core of a young offense and defensive talent, and they're a smart organization. I think that's the one thing that Philadelphia, they've done it great in terms of the free agent additions that they made last year and also the talent that they have drafted. So, second guessing this organization in terms of releasing Darius Slay, I don't think you could do that, especially when you're carrying the hardware from a dominating performance over the Chiefs.
As you would assume, post-June 1 designation on the release of Darius Slay, that would save Philadelphia about $4.3 million worth of cap space. The Eagles have been highlighted, Joe, because of Howie Roseman has assembled this roster, paying everybody that they really have had to. Anybody that needed an extension, anybody that was coming up for a payday, a free agent acquisition in Saquon Barkley, they have had the available room to pay. But one of the reasons you can do that is because you are great at drafting. And very soon, guys like Jalen Carter and Nakobe Dean and Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, when their rookie discounted deals come to a close, you're going to have the foresight and the financial flexibility to pay those extensions. And there is no doubt that a lot of those guys, Joe, currently on a rookie deal are going to be very worthy of a long-term and expensive extension for that second contract in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's why it's important when you do draft, and to your point, they have drafted starters immediately that are plug-and-play type of guys. So they get that talent starting in year 1, 2, and 3. So at the end of the rookie deal, you've gotten maybe 3 or 4 years out of them, and you can move on and cultivate some younger talent in terms of recurring drafts.
Yep. Howie Roseman right now, I think, seen as the best front office exec in the NFL. And how could you really fault it? He is the mastermind of the pigskin. That is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. We appreciate your time with us today on Football Full Circle on SportsGrid Radio. We'll see you tomorrow. Show starts noon Eastern time right here on FFC.
You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.